Hi, I'm Mira Arden, and my sister didn't just sabotage my shot at a dream job, she orchestrated a public execution at my interview, laughing as they shredded my work and branded me a failure in front of strangers. But she didn't know the man who walked in next, immune to her venom, was my fiancé, ready to expose her cruelty. Valeria thought she'd buried me beneath her ambition, but the silence turned, and I rose to claim a throne she never saw coming. Ever been crushed by your own blood, only to rebuild stronger than they could dream? This is the day I stopped begging for scraps and built my own empire. Before we dive in, what time is it where you are? And from where are you reading? Drop it in the comments. Let's unpack this family betrayal. The walls were all glass, sleek, cold, corporate. I could see my own reflection as I walked in. My posture straight, my shoes worn at the edges. My name badge felt heavier than it should have. I held my portfolio close, its corners frayed from being packed and repacked over the past month. The Nexus AI logo blazed from every screen in the room, like it was judging me. A few other candidates were already seated, polished, confident, tailored suits, lawless grooming, the kind of people who always have a connection inside. I forced a smile when one glanced my way, but it wasn't returned. I took the only available chair, slightly askew, not quite in the circle, like it was meant for someone who didn't fully fit. I reminded myself I didn't need to fit. I just needed to be noticed. My phone buzzed. A text from Valeria. "Don't embarrass me today. You're already out of your league." The words stung, but I shoved the phone in my bag, refusing to let her rattle me. Then the door clicked, and Valeria walked in. She wore a charcoal silk blazer, heels that clicked sharply on the marble, and held a thermos that screamed wealth. Her makeup was understated but impeccable. Her hair pulled into a chignon that said, "I'm above you." My breath hitched. She didn't flinch when our eyes met. No nod, no flicker of recognition. She strode to the table as if I weren't her younger sister, as if we hadn't once shared a bunk bed, as if she hadn't sabotaged my first job interview 9 years ago. Valeria took her seat among the panelists, yes, panelists, and sipped from her thermos while another interviewer opened the session. She leaned to the assistant, whispering loud enough for me to hear, "Make sure she doesn't get comfortable. This isn't her place." The room hummed with corporate jargon, innovation drivers, cross-dimensional agility, data-driven impact. It felt like a language I was supposed to speak but couldn't quite grasp. "Anyone for tea?" an assistant asked, carrying a tray. The tray circulated. Every candidate got a cup except me. I stayed silent. I didn't need to speak. Valeria was already smirking over her thermos, and I caught her lean toward the man beside her, whispering, "She's still dressing like she shops at thrift stores." The man snickered, just enough to burn. I kept my eyes steady. I wouldn't give her the reaction she craved, but inside, my stomach knotted. I stared at the tabletop's faux walnut grain, focusing on my breath. I remembered nights at my tiny desk, stitching together freelance gigs, teaching myself machine learning from free tutorials while my ex called it a quirky hobby. I recalled the day Valeria accidentally sent my prototype to a rival firm. The deal collapsed. It was my 25th birthday. I'd called her, voice shaking. "Why, Val?" She laughed. "You weren't ready for that stage, Mira. I did you a favor. I vowed I wouldn't flee this time. Not from her, not from this." They started calling names. One by one, candidates stood for introductions. As they spoke, Valeria nodded, smiled, jotted notes. When my name was called, she didn't look up. I stood, walked to the center, and placed my portfolio in front of her. She glanced at it for a heartbeat, then slid it to the woman next to her like it was junk mail. The woman barely looked before setting it aside. That was my moment. No questions, no acknowledgement, just rejection. Valeria smirked, muttering to the panel, "She's here for pity points, not talent." A few chuckles rippled, slicing deeper. I sat back down. Someone coughed. The wall clock ticked too loudly. I tried to square my shoulders, ignoring the flush creeping up my neck. "She's here?" a voice muttered behind me. Didn't know she was even in AI. And then Valeria laughed, soft but piercing. "She's not," she said, loud enough for the room. "Just playing pretend with her little coding toys." I didn't turn. I didn't blink. But I noted it. Some dismiss you for not matching their polish, others mock when they think you're lesser. The question wasn't if they saw me, it was if I'd let them define me. I adjusted the portfolio on my lap, recalling something my mother said before Valeria started tossing around terms like disruptor and thought leader. Never beg to enter a room you helped build. My phone vibrated again, another text from Valeria. "You're wasting their time. Leave now." I deleted it, my resolve hardening. The paper made a faint rustle as it shifted, familiar, like rejection's quiet signature. Before I could steady my breath, the next name was called. A polished candidate, silver cufflinks, Oxford drawl, Stanford ring, stood and spoke of transformational leadership. The panel laughed at his quips. Someone clapped. The room's energy shifted as if I'd never existed. I waited, hoping for a pause, a chance. Nothing. 4 more questions passed. I was skipped repeatedly, like furniture. When the assistant finally glanced my way, it wasn't with regret, but with a look that said, "You're still here?" A tall woman at the table's head, Claire from the intro email, leaned back and smirked. "So," she said, spinning a stylus, "what makes you think you're cut out for the majors?" Her tone was amused, like asking a kid if they could pilot a jet. I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, Valeria reached across. Her hand grabbed my portfolio's top sheet as if it insulted her. She uncapped a green pen and scrawled across it. I saw it from my seat. Wrong degree, wrong vibe, wrong everything. Then, in bold caps at the bottom, UN fit. The green ink bled like a bruise. She held it up, smirking at the panel. "This is what we're dealing with. Amateur hour." I didn't blink. I didn't reach for it. I let her place it down with a smug grin, sliding it across the table like evidence in a trial. I cleared my throat. "I led a machine learning overhaul for 4 regional startups," I said. "Last year, I built an analytics pipeline that slashed latency by 42%. That model is now still tinkering with those cute side gigs," Valeria cut in, voice sugary. She turned to the panel. While I was keynoting at a Singapore conference, she was still spamming LinkedIn with CVs. Claire laughed openly. "Oh, Valeria, you warned us she'd be a stretch." Chuckles rippled. Claire smirked. Even the assistant hid a smile. It was happening again. But I didn't waver. I looked at Valeria, not the executive, but the sister who'd mocked my sketchbooks in high school for fun, who'd said I'd never have the edge for this world. Part of me had hoped she'd see me across this table as more than a target. She knew my grind, my scars, but that knowledge wasn't a bond. It was her ammunition. I called her the night before, pleading, "Val, don't do this. We're sisters." She snorted. "Sisters don't compete, Mira. They stay in their lane." I inhaled through my nose, exhaled slowly. My hands stayed still. My voice, when I spoke, was even. "I may not fit your mold, but my results speak. You just chose not to hear them." Claire leaned back. "We've seen enough. Thanks for the enthusiasm." Valeria's fingers tapped the table. She didn't look at me now. She didn't need to. The blow was landed, savored. A moment later, a panelist slid my portfolio back, now creased in half. "Best of luck finding something at your tier," he said, almost gently. "Maybe customer service," Valeria added, voice dripping. "Or stick to your little hobby, apps, safer for everyone." I took it with steady fingers, nodded, and stood. "I'll keep you posted," I said softly, heading for the door. Valeria called after me, "Don't come back, Mira. You're not welcome here." But I wasn't going home. I didn't stop until the glass doors closed behind me. Seattle's downtown roared around me, buses hissing, horns blaring, a city that didn't pause for crushed dreams. My boots clicked on the pavement, deliberate but not hurried. I wasn't escaping. just seeking air free of corporate polish and fake grins. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Valeria, left before the interview. "Mira, don't humiliate yourself today. You're not Nexus material. Stay home." I deleted it, her voice fueling my fire. 3 blocks away, I slipped into a cramped cafe that smelled of over-roasted coffee and regret. The barista didn't look up. I ordered a black coffee I wouldn't drink to claim the window table. The portfolio was still in my hand. I sat slowly, fingers tracing the top page's edge. Green ink stained the corner like a fresh scar. Unfit in aggressive caps. All arrogance. I pulled out my phone and saw her latest LinkedIn post, proud to shape Nexus AI's future, weeding out the unfit. The jab was blatant, and the comments, colleagues praising her discernment, cut deeper. I wasn't shocked, it wasn't new. This wasn't even the worst. I stared at passing cyclists, but my mind dragged me back. 9 years ago, aged 23, my first real job offer within reach. I'd freelanced for months, crafting a neural network prototype for small nonprofits. I was proud. I'd shown it to Valeria over coffee, thinking it was sisterly trust. A week later, her firm unveiled a near-identical model, pitched by Valeria. She didn't lie, she just didn't correct them when they assumed it was hers. I didn't claim it, she'd said later at a family brunch, sipping mimosa. If people misread, that's on them. I confronted her after. "You stole my work, Val." She rolled her eyes. "You're too soft for this game, Mira. I saved you the embarrassment." The job went to her colleague, someone with the right presence, and I was left justifying why my idea was launched without me. I remembered Dad chuckling at that brunch, raising his glass. To my girls, Valeria the trailblazer, and Mira, always the sweet one. Sweet. The word had clung to me for a decade. Now, staring at the green ink, I saw this wasn't sabotage. It was a pattern. Every time I shared, she'd twist it, claim it, wear it, then convince everyone I was a footnote. Quiet, kind, but never bold enough to break through. I pulled out my phone. My inbox held a draft resignation for a freelance coding gig I'd considered quitting, unsure if small jobs were holding me back from big roles. My finger hovered. Maybe I wasn't meant for this. Maybe the sleepless nights and self-doubt were screaming the truth. Then I remembered Felix's call last night. "Mira, you're better than their games," he'd said. "Show them tomorrow." Then I deleted the draft. No, not today. She didn't get to diminish me again. The cafe was too still. My coffee had cooled. My phone buzzed. A text from Felix. "How'd it go?" I stared, thumb typing. She buried me. But I paused, reread, and erased it. That was her story, not mine. I took a deep breath and typed one word. "Fine." I texted back. "They tore me apart, but I'm not done. Meet me at Nexus in an hour." He replied instantly. "I'm there. Let's flip this." Then I stood, zipped my jacket, and pushed the chair back. I wasn't finished. The elevator chimed too sharply, like it was alerting the building to my return. The security guard blinked when I reappeared. "Didn't you just leave?" "I'm here for the open assessment round," I said, voice firm. He hesitated, then grabbed the phone. "1 sec." He didn't pry. Maybe he saw the steel in my eyes. I overheard him mutter, "Valeria's sister's back." "Yeah, her." 3 minutes later, I was heading back up. When the doors opened on the 38th floor, the mood shifted. The panel hadn't expected me. I saw it in their tight smiles, their furrowed brows. Valeria didn't bother hiding her sneer. "Back for more?" she said, voice dripping. "You never did know when to stop." "This is pathetic, Mira." I said nothing, walked to the empty chair they hadn't offered earlier, pulled it out and sat. Claire, the senior exec with a flawless manicure and an ego to match, leaned back with mock delight. "Well then," she said, "since you're so determined, let's test that brain. See if you're worth our time." Valeria leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Don't waste our time, Mira. You're not fooling anyone with your little comeback act." She nodded to the assistant. A dense packet landed before me. Paper, not digital. No laptop, no calculator, just a pen. A test. Algorithms, system architecture, logic traps designed to break you. 12 pages, 20 minutes, Claire said. No questions allowed. We're timing you. I heard a snicker. It wasn't subtle. I nodded, took the pen, and began. Each second pounded like a heartbeat. I ignored their stares, the slurp of coffee, Valeria's chair creaking as she whispered to another panelist. The whisper carried. Let's see if her little open-sort tinkering gets her anywhere, Claire added, loud enough for all. I bet she'll cry before she finishes. I didn't look up. When I reached the final problem, my hand cramped. My breath was shallow, but I finished. Precise, no scratches, no doubts. I slid the packet across. Claire didn't smile. She flipped through it like skimming a spam flyer, then tore it in half. Slowly, deliberately, Valeria clapped, grinning. That's what you get for thinking you belong here. The room went silent. The rip of paper, page by page, was louder than any scream. She dropped the pieces into the trash and muttered, Nice handwriting, but we don't hire hobbyists. Laughter from someone, sharp, fading into a cough. I stayed seated, hands in my lap. Valeria tilted her head, like watching a pet fumble a trick. Her voice was almost soft. You're too stubborn, Mira. You never learn when to give up. And you never learn when to stop underestimating me, I said, voice low but cutting. I rose, walked to the trash, and knelt. Piece by piece, I gathered the torn pages. Not to salvage, but to remember this moment's texture, the paper's weight, their dismissal's sting, the edge of their arrogance. Someone cleared their throat, uneasy, but no one stopped me. Then, as I reached for the last sheet, a pointed heel kicked it away, pinning it by the chair. Valeria! She leaned down, voice a venomous whisper, still groveling for scraps. Pathetic. Pathetic's thinking you can break me, I shot back, standing. You're not that powerful. I looked up. She expected tears, defeat. Instead, I stood and, for the first time in years, smiled. By the time I left that building again, Seattle's sky had softened to that moody silver dusk the Pacific Northwest wears in late autumn. The chill cut through my coat, but I didn't feel it. I called Felix from the sidewalk. They humiliated me, I said, voice steady. Valeria led it. He didn't hesitate. I'm coming to Nexus now. We're ending this. I kept walking until I passed the patisserie on 4th Avenue that stayed open late. Its warm glow a faint echo of the family dinner 3 nights prior. A night that should have warned me. It was meant to be a simple gathering, just catching up, Mom had texted. But when I arrived at the ivory loft, with its crisp tablecloths and flickering candles, I knew the stage was set. Mom waved, but didn't rise. The waiter handed me a menu after everyone had ordered. I sat by a potted olive tree. Then the clapping began. Valetier swept in 25 minutes late and everyone stood as if she'd conquered a summit. I was on a call with Tokyo, she said. No apology. Global deals wait for no one. Dad beamed. That's my star, sealing contracts while we sip soup. I sipped my water, silent. We raised glasses of Prosecco. Mom nudged hers toward mine. Freelancing must teach grit, she said. It's like a fun detour in your 30s. I was 34. The moment that seared me came over dessert. Valeria was pitching Dad on a Nexus AI collaboration. AI governance frameworks for enterprise scalability. Words I knew intimately. I'd designed a similar system for a startup 4 years ago, shared with Valeria over brunch in a burst of sisterly pride. Now it was her pitch. I spoke up, voice tight. That sounds like my framework from 2021. Valeria laughed, dismissing me. Oh, Mira, don't be silly. You gave me some ideas, but I made it real. Dad toasted Valeria's latest board seat, our fearless pioneer. My spoon hovered over the panna cotta. I looked at Mom. She smiled softly. Don't take it personally, Mira. It's not a race. I forced a nod. Of course. Then Valeria leaned close, her voice a whisper as she refilled my glass. You'll always be my little shadow, sweetie. Accept it. I pushed back, voice low. Stop stealing my work, Val, she smirked. Prove it, then. Oh, wait. You can't. A phone camera flashed. Dad snapping, a sister's moment. In the photo, I'm smiling, head tilted, glass raised, a perfect lie. Back in the present, I stood in the Nexus AI restroom, gripping the granite sink. The mirror showed no tears, but my eyeliner was smudged. My lips were pale. I splashed water on my face, watching the streaks dissolve. A stall opened. 2 assistants emerged, giggling. She tanked so hard, one said. Claire ripped her test like it was trash. The other laughed. She picked up the pieces like a sad kitten. Isn't she like Valeria's cousin or something? No, her sister, the first corrected. Valeria said she's been milking her name for years. They left without seeing me. I didn't move, staring at my reflection's reflection. Something in my eyes hardened, softness giving way to iron, quiet but sure. I texted Felix. They're lying about me, it's worse than I thought. He replied, I'm at Nexus, get back here, we're exposing her now. In the hallway I paused by the glass wall overlooking the lobby. There she was, a young woman maybe 22, clutching her CV like a lifeline. A recruiter brushed past her, ignoring her. Her eyes followed, then dropped. Then they met mine. She didn't smile, but her grip eased slightly. That's when I knew I wasn't meant to shrink in their presence. I didn't need their validation anymore. I didn't rush. My steps were steady, almost too calm. After years of folding myself to fit rooms not built for me, I was done bending. The receptionist blinked when I returned. Miss Auden, you're back? I need to see the panel again, I said, smoothing my blazer like armor. She faltered. They're in a closed review. I held her gaze. I know, that's why I'm here, she whispered into the phone. Valeria's sister's back, says it's urgent. After a beat, she nodded and dialed. They didn't keep me waiting long. I was ushered to the same conference room, and, as before, no one stood. Claire looked up, stylus in hand. Left your ego on the way out? Valeria chuckled softly. You really can't let go, can you? This is sad, Mira. I'm not here to plead, I said, stepping forward. You skipped something. My record, my impact, what actually counts. I placed a slim folder on the table. Valeria scoffed. What's this, your diary of failures? Claire scoffed. You're disrupting a private session. Good, I said, voice sharp. You need disrupting. But the door opened behind me. Not by me. The air shifted. Back straightened. Words died. Felix Marrow stepped in, presence like a storm held in check. Tailored navy, no tie, calm as a blade. Everyone stood. Valeria's hand flew to her lips. Felix? I mean, Mr. Marrow? He didn't glance at her. He walked to me, hand grazing my shoulder, subtle but unmistakable. You okay? He asked, voice low just for me. I nodded. They need to see me. He turned to them, expression unreadable. Curious, since some of you seem to know me quite well. Valeria stammered. Felix, she's exaggerating. She's always been dramatic. Claire cleared her throat. Sir, if we'd known she was qualified, Felix cut in. Qualified or just human? He opened my folder, spreading pages across the glass. Mira Arden, freelance architect on 4 of our core platforms, co-authored our AI governance model in 2023, the one most of this panel still can't parse. Claire's face reddened. A panelist stared at the papers like they'd ignited. Felix slid a chart across. This is the performance dashboard you touted last quarter. Her design, unsigned, but hers. He turned to Valeria. You called her unfit. Care to explain why you buried her work? Valeria's voice shook. She's not at our level, Felix. You're blinded by truth, Felix snapped. He looked at me. Anything to add? I faced the panel, then Valeria. Her mouth was agape, like a prank had gone too far. I didn't come for favors, I said. I came because I have value. Turns out I had more. Proof you refused to see. Valeria tried to speak, but nothing emerged. Felix's voice turned glacial. This calls for a review of yesterday's interview process. Fairness, compliance, conduct. Valeria spat. You're taking her side because you're engaged. This is bias. No, Felix said, icy. I'm taking the side of evidence. Claire shuffled papers, stammering. It was informal, not final. Good, Felix said. Then you won't mind us rolling the tape. He nodded to the corner screen. A remote waited. Let's see how you performed under informal conditions. I stood beside him as he pressed play. The room's oxygen vanished. No one stirred. No one typed. Just my voice detailing my work, Claire's snide remarks, Valeria's slow, deliberate dismantling. There was her smirk as she dismissed my portfolio, her quip about my side quests framing my life as trivial. Her voice cut through. She's a wannabe, always riding my coattails. Every eye darted between the screen and Valeria, her polished mask cracking. When the footage caught her whispering, "You'll always be my shadow," over wine, I didn't look away. Claire gasped. Valeria, you said that? Valeria snapped. It was a joke. I felt the panel shift, as if the ground had tilted. Felix stood, arms crossed, unmoved. When the screen darkened, silence held. The legal advisor cleared his throat. This isn't just poor judgment, it's a legal risk. HR and counsel will be notified by end of day. Claire opened her mouth, likely to deflect, but Valeria jumped in, voice breaking. She orchestrated this, she yelled, pointing at me. She wanted it recorded to trap me. I raised an eyebrow, silent. That quiet shook her more than any retort. I gave you everything, she screamed, voice raw. I got you that first freelance gig. I met her gaze, calm. And when Felix chose me, you made sure no one else would. Felix's eyes narrowed. You admit you sabotaged her. A pin drop hush. Felix turned to her, slow, deliberate. So, you admit you sabotaged her applications. You violated our hiring standards. Valeria scoffed. I was shielding the company from favoritism. The only favoritism, I said softly, was you guarding your spotlight from someone you couldn't outshine. A panelist slid her tablet away. Claire stared at her shoes. No one rushed to Valeria's side. I wasn't trying to ruin you, Valeria muttered almost to herself. No, I replied. You were trying to erase me, to scrub my name, so you could star in every tale. My voice placed steady, though my fists were tight. Felix placed a hand on a new folder. There's one more thing Valeria didn't know we had. Her eyes widened, caught between fear and disbelief. What now? She whispered. You can't do this to me? And in that instant, I saw her empire crumble. Not from my actions, but from the truths she'd buried, now rising. Felix opened the folder, the papers rustled deafening. He laid out a printout. An HR system audit trail, header, applicant history, Mira Arden. The legal advisor leaned in. These notes were added during your 2021 application cycle. Metadata confirms Valeria's login, lacks strategic vision, poor cultural alignment, history of inconsistent teamwork. These are career enders. Felix didn't raise his voice. You doctored files to block your sister's candidacy. I was protecting the company, Valeria said, voice thin. You don't know what it's like having someone leech off your success. You're done here, Felix said, final, effective immediately. Valeria screamed. You're throwing me out for her? I made Nexus what it is? The air shifted, no fury, just cold truth. Security was summoned. Valeria stood, jaw locked, eyes scanning for ally. Before the door, she spun back, desperate. She's not clean, she shouted, slamming her phone on the table. A screenshot. An email, supposedly mine, calling a client a clueless trend chaser in stilettos. My name, my footer, Nexus AI's tag. She pointed at me, trembling. See? She's a liar. But I was ready. I pulled a black binder from my bag. "This," I said, passing it to legal, "is the server log from 3 nights ago. That email came from Valeria's IP, using her admin access." The advisor scanned it, face grim. "This is forgery, Valeria." "You're in deep." Silence, not shock, but confirmation. Claire shifted back. The assistant studied her feet. Felix nodded. "Forging credentials to slander a candidate is beyond unethical. Legal will follow up." Valeria's voice broke. "You think you're above me now just because he loves you?" "No," I said, looking into her unraveling eyes. "I'm done living below you, and I've got the receipts to prove it." Security escorted her out, not with force, but finality. She yelled as the door closed. "This isn't over, Mira. You'll regret this." That's silence, justice's flavor. I stood as the board murmured. Felix didn't ask. "I move we reinstate Mira Arden to her original consulting role full-time with project lead authority. All in favor?" Every hand rose. The HR rep stood. "You're offered lead systems strategist. Valeria's old office is yours," Claire added, voice shaky. "We misjudged you, Mira. We're sorry." I glanced at the glass-walled corner suite, her former fortress, and shook my head. "I want a desk on the engineering floor with the builders." They paused, nodded. As I signed the contract, someone, Claire, maybe, slid a note across. "We're glad you're where you belong." I looked at her. "You didn't think I belonged an hour ago. What changed?" She flinched, silent. I didn't reply, just smiled and left without looking back. The paper rustled as it slid into the box, soft but thunderous to me. A clean fold, green ink still seeping, and my handwritten note clipped on top. "Let this guide someone still learning to ignore voices that shrink them." That portfolio wasn't shame. It was a ledger of lessons paid in silence. I stepped into the late afternoon light. Seattle glowed with a silver haze, softening even the city's edges. The streets hummed, but I wasn't lost in them. I walked slowly, feeling my own rhythm. Felix called. "You were incredible, Mira! I'm proud." I smiled. "I didn't need saving, Felix. I needed truth." "And you got it," he said. "Now what?" "Now I build," I replied. Back upstairs to gather my things, I passed Valeria's old office, door ajar. Cleaners wiped shelves, removing her prized plaque. "Leaders make the rules." I paused. Nothing to say, nothing to claim. That space wasn't mine. Not because I couldn't take it, but because I didn't want it. I turned and nearly bumped into her, the young woman from the lobby, CV still clutched tight. "They hired me," she said, breathless, "for the role you suggested." "Good," I said, holding her gaze. "You earned it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her smile was tentative, hopeful, someone finally trusting their own voice. In my new office, compact, sunlit, near the coders, I sat alone briefly. It smelled of citrus polish and new starts. My bag hit the floor with a thud. I taped the torn portfolio above my desk. It looked like a scar, and that felt right. Not for Valeria or the pain, but for the moment. I chose dignity over despair. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "I didn't understand before. I'm sorry," I called her. "You let Valeria define me for years," I said. "Why?" she stammered. "I thought she was helping you. She was burying me," I said. "I'm done with that story." I hung up. I stared for a minute, then set it down, not replying. Not from anger, but clarity. She didn't owe me closure, and I didn't owe her answers. Some bridges don't burn. They just don't need rebuilding. I leaned back. Sunlight hit the corkboard, catching the portfolio's edges like silver veins. She said I'd always be her shadow. I just had to step out of it. Maybe that's all it was. Me clinging to a family that only saved seats for stars. Outside, someone shouted. Someone jaywalked. Life moved, so did I. If you've stayed quiet because you thought they were right about you, maybe it's time to speak, or stop explaining altogether. I exhaled, pinned a final note beside the portfolio, a scrawl from a failed pitch years ago. No one sees the quiet builder until their work outlives the tempest. Sometimes those who silence us share our blood. But strength isn't loud, it's the silent choice to stop seeking approval and forge your own way. Ever walked away from family to find yourself? If this hit home, share below and subscribe for more raw stories like this. The truth behind family betrayal. It's rarely what it seems.